Get woke, go broke, I think is the official saying. And what people are saying right now is the case with Patreon, as we got a new article here by CNBC with their title, Patreon CEO says the company's generous business model is not sustainable as it sees rapid growth. Now, of course, I have a lot to say about this, and very conveniently, CNBC actually got rid of its comments section, so of course people can't voice their just utter disdain to this pretty incredulous comment, since, as we know, Patreon survives as kind of a middleman that takes creators and donors of those creators and gives a 90-10 cut. So if you give $1 to a creator that is on Patreon, Patreon gets to have 10 cents themselves. And to see Patreon now complaining that they're too generous is a little bit ridiculous, and shows and highlights, to me, also important commentary on the economic factors when it comes to big online business, as well as the factors of corporations thinking that they are more than just the middleman here, getting involved in extremely biased politics and disservice to its users by censoring a lot of them, specifically recently destroying the income of a very popular creator right before Christmas because of something that creator did off of the platform. Meanwhile, some of the top creators that do produce a lot of content and a lot of the user base for Patreon, they do commit some of the same things, and Patreon hasn't punished those people, which of course is just showing their hypocrisy. And that's why many people are not shedding a tear over this latest article, which reads in the key bullet points that CNBC pointed out here, that quote, that there are more than 3 million patrons supporting more than 100,000 creators on Patreon. Another point, more than $1 billion will be paid out to creators since the company's inception in 2013. And yes, that's a lot of money. Continuing on with another bulletin point, Patreon will send content creators more than $500 million to fund their membership business in 2019, and Patreon needs to build new businesses and new services and new revenue lines in order to build a sustainable business, said Patreon CEO Jack Conte. Now, the story reads, crowdfunding service Patreon announced its latest benchmark Wednesday, with more than 3 million patrons supporting content creators each month through the company's platform. Also, by the way, a lot of creators that are leaving the platform mainly because of its political bias, including people like Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson, Stuxenhammer, Timcast, and even myself, that has told everyone on my Patreon to move towards Subscribestar, that is not as politically motivated and doesn't censor people because of their speech with a hypocritical double standard. And we've seen a big exodus from a lot of popular people from Patreon, of course, but the article continues, Patreon allows illustrators, authors, podcasters, musicians, and other independent creators to receive crowdfunding directly from their audience. Well, depends. If you get selected and punished by Patreon, then no. Not everyone's allowed to use the platform. Continuing on, the number of active patrons supporting artists on the platform in 2019 has been significant, growing up to 1 million over the last year. The company said the company is also tracked to pay out $500 million to content creators in 2019, pushing the company to surpass $1 billion in payouts since its inception in 2013. Under the company's current business model, 90% of funds are paid directly to content creators. Patreon takes 5%, and the remaining 5% covers transaction fees. Patreon CEO Jack Conte said in an interview with CNBC that the platform will still be facing the challenges of maintaining a profitable model as the company continues its growth. And I'm left with the question, like, you're a middleman. You're like an Uber or an Airbnb. You don't own or have any creative content. You just take a cut of bringing people together. So why are you losing so much money? Again, the article continues, the company does not currently provide contracts, which allows users to retain 100% ownership of their work and full control of their brand. Well, again, disputed here, CNBC, you're again lying, unless you have a political opinion that Patreon selectively doesn't like, then no, you don't have full control over your brand. They just delete you. Continuing on, the companies plan to provide creators with new value services like options for merchandising to generate new revenue. Creators will be given the opportunity to participate in these services, and it could ultimately reduce Patreon's generous 90% payout model. So are they going to create something like Teesprings, which already exists and is already very popular? And again, just take an additional cut out of that for what reason at all? Again, people need to understand here, Patreon is not really needed. If anyone has a WordPress website, which is free, by the way, you could set up a PayPal. And with your PayPal and WordPress, you could set up a similar Patreon system very easily with just a click of a few buttons, and you won't need this middleman collecting 10% of your profits, which we set up on wearechange.org/donate. We also use Teesprings. And now Subscribestar, because it's more ethical, and that's filled with political bull crap that, of course, CNBC does not want you to know about and doesn't highlight here. Continuing on, quote, "We will have to re-examine how we charge for new services as we put them out," Conte said. Yeah, if you're not too busy just censoring people, getting rid of their incomes right before Christmas, yeah, maybe you'll have some time to actually figure that out. Conte said with added revenue streams, the company will continue to redefine the space of creative content creation and aggregation. How? You're just a middleman. You're not needed. Currently dominated by YouTube, Spotify, and other various subscription services. He said, quote, "The feeling of support and connection with artists, along with the transactional benefits of membership, encourages users to pay for content that they can otherwise receive free." No. Again, no, this is what creators have to do to survive in today's day and age. Continuing on, the article says Patreon is no stranger to the editorial controversies that plagued other big tech companies in 2018. Well, it's not really controversies. It's really just people selecting people that they don't like for their political opinion, especially independent people, and just deleting them and censoring them. Continuing on, top Patreon creators, author, and podcaster Sam Harris deleted his Patreon account in December and accused the company of political bias after several conservative accounts were removed for being associated with hate groups. Again, total disinformation here. I do have to eat my words because I am surprised that they did mention Sam Harris, and I said before that they're not. They actually did. So eating my own words here, just to be completely honest and fully transparent. But again, the specific users that we are talking about that created this controversy from Sam Harris, these are not people who were associated with hate groups. That's a lie perpetrated here by the big mainstream media. There were some people who were legitimately associated with, but they didn't have a backlash of content creators who said, hey. Now, there were some people who were associated with hate groups who were kicked off the platform that really didn't have a big outcry. The outcry came when people who were not associated with hate groups, people who were specifically expressing their speech against other hate groups, when those people were kicked off, that's when people like Sam Harris decided to stand up and say enough is enough. And that was a very big, bold move by Sam Harris, who lost a significant amount of revenue that he gained every year. The article finishes off saying, "We don't allow hate speech." Again, oh God, such selective, hypocritical lies here. 1984 doublespeak here. That's what we're seeing here. Which other platforms say that they don't as well, and Patreon really means it. No, you don't mean it. You're full of crap, Conte said. And he's full of crap because, again, the language that this specific user that created a lot of this controversy was kicked off for is used by other top Patreon users that, of course, Patreon doesn't choose to use their selective terms and services against. Again, all choice by choice, big bias here. Tech Silicon Valley billionaires deciding what you can and cannot see. The article continues, "You can't just say anything you want in the world, and we don't want to build that platform." Yes, God forbid freedom of speech, Conte. Yeah, that may hurt your feelings there a little bit, but people should have the right to express themselves no matter how wrong they are. And some probably conservatives said this, but I truly believe the answer to bad speech is, of course, more good speech. And speech terrifies Conte, and that's why we've seen such ridiculous actions by him. Continuing on, the company also revised its content policy in 2007 to eliminate the site's use for the exchange of adult-themed websites, videos, and content. Again, selectively enforced. Some of them were targeted, but still, Patreon's pretty much the main place where I know a lot of thoughts. Even my ex-girlfriend, she's on there selling her photos up there. And then finishing off here, Conte said as the company grows, it plans to build more enhancements, features, and integrations to help every creator easily activate their membership business and focus on creating. No, we have to worry about you selectively targeting us. Sorry there, Conte, totally mistruths. And if he's lying about that, what else could he be lying about? I don't know, maybe the whole basis behind this article. Let's look at some numbers here. And what most likely happened here with other big tech companies is that there was too much of an investment into a lot of these companies. They didn't know how to handle it. They can't pay back the investors. And that's why they're stuck here as a middleman that literally just allows people to reach out and talk to each other. That's all they're doing here, and pay each other, collecting the revenue from. They're acting like they're in trouble. I call hooey, I call bullcrap. More poor decisions by a major corporation trying to push its main political bias against you. That's it. But that's just what I believe. Could be wrong. Let me know if you think I'm wrong in the comment section below. And stay tuned for more quick backup videos here on this channel. Yeah, I guess we're doing this now. Why not?